Welcome to the Abundant Accountant Podcast. This is where accounting professionals just like you come to learn the most efficient and powerful ways to grow their firm, sharpen their sales skills, and have consistent increasing revenue. We cover topics from sales, networking, handling objections, negotiation, pricing, finding those ideal clients, and how to get rid of the ones that just don't suit you and how to set those boundaries so you can stop giving away your time, working for free, putting yourself on sale, and really start to get paid for the value and the worth that you bring to your clients. You'll learn tips, strategies, as well as hear others from personal interviews from successful accounting professionals. This podcast will show you exactly how to create the firm and life of your dreams full of abundance. Welcome to the Abundant Accountant Podcast. Today we have a very special guest. He's been here before. He's a sought-after professional speaker, and he's a 5-time best-selling author. And he's spent over 35 years teaching, entertaining, and inspiring audiences worldwide. And his career has taken him over 3 million miles now in the air. And he has a lot of amazing clients such as Toyota, Disney, NASA, Bristol Myers, and other financial institutions. His books have been featured in USA Today, Harvard Business Review, Publishers Weekly, and they've been translated in multiple languages as well. But before we welcome our very special guest to the show, if you are struggling to charge premium fees and feel that you're getting taken advantage of by your clients, or that no clients would ever pay you top dollar for your services, and that you always have to justify the investment working with you, or you find yourself discounting your fees at the last minute, and you want to get to the truth of that and why you're doing it, then I invite you to book a call with my business partner, Denise, and I to explore what challenges you're having in your firm and how you can nip all these problems in the butt. And you can do that over at theabundantcall.com. Once again, that's theabundantcall.com to really get crystal clear so you can put all of that discounting, answering quick questions, and doing free work behind you. And now, let's welcome our special guest, Rob, to the show. Welcome, Rob, to the show.
Great being here. Look forward to our conversation.
Oh, likewise. I love having you on the show, and I love our conversations. And I've had feedback, too, from listeners saying that they've really enjoyed our episodes. And, it's just an honor that you have the time and are taking it out to contribute to the accounting and tax firm community of firm owners and others who might be in a job considering going out on their own. So I'm just really grateful for your time and that you're just awesome to have conversations with. So thank you. But before
you're as good as your last conversation, by the way. So I'm sitting here chewing my nails going, all right, Rob, bring the A game, but here we go. I'm ready
bring
for
the
you.
A game as always, because we have a really great conversation for today on different sales training programs for accountants and tax firm owners, and sometimes why training fails and what to do about that, and also what to look for when you're choosing a sales coach or a sales trainer, since I'm one, you're one, and you've written books on this topic. And I think a lot of people, listening might say, oh, well, I can just figure this whole sales thing on my own. And then some people get confused that leads and marketing is the same thing as sales, which it's totally not. So maybe we can dissect the difference between that. But before we start, Rob, why don't you just share, if they haven't listened to you yet, who you are and just a little bit about all the books that you've written too.
All right. Well, gee, how can anybody not know Rob Jolles?
I know.
It's astonishing. But and just in case you've been living under a rock, I've actually got about 40 years as a sales trainer, really worked for 2 major companies in sales, one New York Life, your classic intangible, sold life, health, and disability, and one for Xerox, and sold printers, fax, memory writers. That's right, I sold fax. I sold typewriters, but I sold printers and copiers too. And then I became a trainer for Xerox and trained all the trainers. And 30 years ago, I had that entrepreneurial itch left and started writing books and got about close to 3 million miles now in the air, going around the world. And I love talking about sales. I love talking about persuasion. I actually like talking about training too, because I trained all the trainers at Xerox. But I think somewhere in that pile there, we can really get at a topic that most people don't like to talk about, particularly sales trainers, which is why all, that's a heck of a resume, Rob. So why does it fail so often? And so I don't talk about that enough, and I'm looking forward to that conversation.
Yeah, no, and I think it's really, important to talk about, because I don't think, from the firm owners I've spoken to, and if you're listening, you might have thought, why would I need to learn sales? I do taxes, I do accounting, I do bookkeeping, I do payroll. Well, what does that have to do with my business and being a firm owner? But what I like to say, Rob, is that, if you own a business, it doesn't matter what you do. You could be, like us, you could be a firm owner, you could own a restaurant. You signed up for a 24/7 sales career and didn't even know it. A lot of the firm owners, they want to focus on the technical work and the doing of the work. But there has to be that front end conversation from the time someone gets the lead, gets the referral, gets the inquiry from Yelp, gets the inquiry from the website, and is interested to learn about your services. From that point, it's actually a sales conversation until the time you collect the money. So I don't know if you've experienced that too in your sales training, that a lot of people, we just don't realize what the definition of what sales really is. On our P&Ls, it's your top line number. It either says sales or it says revenue. That's typically what I've seen on any income statement. And without sales, we don't have a business.
Right. There's a lot to unpack there. And there's a couple things. First of all, what exactly is sales? Everybody thinks, so you're going to help me bring in more clients. Well, that's actually more on the marketing side.
Yeah.
But I'm going to help you save your clients from doing things like Rob Jolles did. And when Rob Jolles became an entrepreneur, he thought of everything except an accountant. He figured, well, I got a QuickBooks. I should be able to handle this on my own. And then I got only kind of smart, and I decided to hire an accountant, and the least expensive one I could find, who was cutting me in on a deal. And then after I got fined about 6 different ways, I woke up and realized, boy, you get what you pay for. I need a great accountant. So what I'm trying to say to everybody listening is, you do need sales, because you have to save people like me who will become your client. But at what cost? How much did that cost for me to make that decision? Could you have helped me make that decision? And that's where sales comes in.
Yeah, basically, and you can define it your way, but sales is helping someone down a path to make a decision that they feel good about, because ultimately you went with the least expensive one. So you were shopping and buying based on price only, until you learn that you got fined 6 different ways,
That's right.
Can you share what that is? I mean, it's a great way to flip it on the other side for the firm owners that are listening, because this is the exact thing that we need to talk about, because it doesn't, just because they get the lowest price doesn't mean you're going to get the best person to do the work, the best job, the best service, the most knowledgeable person for your situation.
Well, for sure. And, it's funny. We all learn that lesson. And then I made this up. I want you to know. But my made up term is the lesson lasts a little less than a year usually, which is usually about 11 months. And we do it all over again. But we all have taken looked at a basement and said, let's do this inexpensively. And then had it done halfway and realized it was cutting into resale value, creating other problems weren't even there. Crawled back with our tail between our legs to the vendor that we turned down. And not only did we pay that higher rate, we had to pay that first one too. It is a classic, you get what you pay for, but people don't see that. So, you're talking about the definition of sales. You have your definition. Mine has always been, well, my crude version is taking your idea, putting it in somebody else's brain and making them feel like they thought of it. But I really think our job is to persuade people to address or fix existing problems. And that's where you need a skill set. That's where training comes in. I know we got some very smart accountants, but do we have people who can quote to me right now a repeatable, predictable process to move someone past their fear of change? That's where the sales skills come in.
Yep. Because change is probably the number one human thing that people avoid. We hate change and the fear of change, and in your made up situation, I guess, it is hard. And a lot of people have been with the same accounting firms and tax firms for a very, very long time. So until that we present an issue or a challenge or a problem, the person might not even want to leave their current firm. So how do we get someone past those fears? And it's really about having a stronger skill set in the world of sales. And that's what we're really going to talk about today, on what to look for when you're going to maybe enroll or hire someone like myself or like Rob or other sales trainers and coaches out there, and what pitfalls, you can avoid by doing so, but also at what cost do you want to continue to take on clients that don't pay you enough or that drive you crazy? Or that, you feel you have to chase around in circles. And then every tax season, you're burnt out, tired, and exhausted, and wonder why your clients don't appreciate you. And all of that, Rob, I believe stems from our client experience and sales process in the firm.
Good. All right. So let's carve into that. And one last thing, just for anyone who thinks, well, we got this guy Jolles, sales trainer, and I actually do spend a lot of times in the financial industry. Toyota's a client of mine. I very classic sales groups, but I do want people to know that the conversation we're about to have, I've had with I've done almost 13 seminars over the years for NASA. I work with laboratories and parent groups. I work with managers and law firms, all sorts of groups who are sort of wrestling with this. Well, I know what these people need to do, but they won't listen to me, or they keep getting hung up on price. And that's because we're really not as equipped to sell. So, Michelle, I actually broke it down to 4 problems and solutions.
Okay.
That makes things easier. And maybe we'll just go through one and pick it apart and then wrestle with another one if you like. But why sales training fails?
Yeah.
Problem number 1 is I think people confuse product with process, meaning that a lot of times people feel that they've been sales trained, and sometimes a bunch of times, when in fact they keep learning more about their product, and somebody keeps referring to it as your sales training. You can't, if all I ever learned was product, if I just sat down, and that's what happened at New York Life. I went through my sales training. We sat down for 3.5 days, term and whole life and disability and pre-existing condition clauses on health, and you name it, we were after it. And that was our sales training. So when we were done and we got really well sales trained, the door opened up. And the last 2 words I heard were 2 a week, 10 a month, and don't let us catch you in the bullpen. And out we went into the street. And if you were unlucky enough to be in front of me, when I came out after being trained, I was going to regurgitate everything that I just learned, basically breaking the biggest rule of selling, which is what happened to asking questions and listening? What happened to letting the customer paint the picture? What happened to all those great skills that we will find in good sales training? They're not there. And the weird part is most people think they are sales trained when they're not. We can't confuse the two.
Yeah, it's so true, because it's not. And how would you, if you think about an accounting or tax firm owner right now listening, can you share a little bit about specifically getting confused with the product versus their process when we focus too much on just the services you sell versus the client experience and everything else that's entailed with it?
Right. Yeah. No problem. So just think about your continuing education, which I actually wrestle with on my end, and I've been constantly pushing at different groups that regulate that to try and get real sales training into the additional training that everybody needs. It's not just accountants. But the difference is this: when you're learning about your actual accounting, and I'm not much of an accountant.
Yeah,
I've
the
got
technical
a good accountant,
side. Like,
yeah, but all the technical stuff, exactly. The new tax laws and this and all these different things. That's what we call product training. And I'm not telling you, don't learn that. Boy, we need that. Of course you need that. But what happened to maybe just sitting down and actually learning how to listen to people? What happened to how to learn, sit down and create a process that will establish trust? What happened to not only learning how to ask questions, but ask true problem-solving questions clients aren't asking themselves? What happens to sitting down and tying your recommendation in with the specific language of the client? These are, and I'm just brushing the surface now, these are all skills that a salesperson would learn. Tell me which one, because we're an accountant, we ought to throw out, because we certainly don't need trust. Let somebody else mess around with that one. All those skills, and don't call them soft skills or I'll really start grinding my teeth. I call them performance skills, by the way. All those skills are what really bonds us to the client. I've got bad news, and don't give out my email address, but I'm going to tell you that I think that in my humble opinion, notice I'm winding up for the pitch here, I think knowledge is a bit overrated. Now, just let me get this thought out real fast. I'm not telling you that, you shouldn't be the sharpest accountant in whatever state, county, or city you're in. Please be that. But there's a lot of smart people that are accountants. Now what? Why is it that some are so much more successful than others? Because they've made a science of not just being knowledgeable, but being able to communicate and read their clients and communicate at a level that connects and bonds with that clients. That keeps you with an accountant, as I did after my first mistake. I was with my accountant for the next 25 years. I'd be with him today if he didn't retire, because we connected. Yeah, he was smart. Yeah, he was knowledgeable. But we connected and I trusted him. And just those things, the little list I gave you so far, that feeds into trust. That has to be part of our training.
Yep. And that's one thing to look for in a sales training program is, are you going to learn how to communicate and connect to a client? And how are you going to learn the listening skills that are required? And it might sound so easy, right? I think a lot of people listening like, well, Michelle, I already do that. There's a process and a science behind it in a way where you can be able to have your clients see you so differently than they've ever seen before. It's just more than learning the technical side, which in Rob's example is the product training. How to do the tax laws and how to become the best bookkeeping cleanup project, how to learn tax resolution, how to learn tax planning to reduce the savings of taxes for your clients. That's one piece of it. But now we have to enroll the client and engage that client to understand your value, to see that value, and to do so by learning those sales skills. How to, like you said, communicate, connect, and bond with a client where they trust you.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. Even what you said, even that word, and I was being very careful here, by the way, I'll tell you why in about 18 seconds, but even that listening part, which we just sort of throw on the table. Do you know the number one mistake that people make? And there's a really great poll by a guy named Lou Hampton who came up with all these listening habits to avoid. The top 10, 9 of them together don't equal number one. And number one is interrupting me. Which I did not want to do while you were talking, but interrupting me. Now you think, I'm not saying I know the world of accountants, but just think that right now you're an accountant, which most people listening are, and you're sitting there listening to a problem, which you've heard many times before, and you already know what needs to be done because you've helped many people with this before. First of all, do you have the ability not to interrupt the client telling you something you already knew? And here's where the sales skills come in. Do you have the discipline to avoid the biggest mistake you could ever make, which is simply, once it's your turn, tell me what to do about it? Folks, if I was that smart, I would have done it already. That's where selling comes in. If you want to teach a class at the university, go ahead and tell everybody what to do. If you want to help people, I mean not the layups, but the tougher clients that are really looking around, A, don't interrupt them, and B, That's why you hire a professional to get in there and say, okay, yeah, I want to ask questions and listen. Now, how do I dig deeper? How do I go in? What's the process I follow to truly consult and problem solve? Having the right answer, I don't really care. You've got to lead me to that answer. I got to feel like we got there together. And when we do, that's how you start establishing a 25-year client, which I think everybody wants in this world. It's too difficult finding clients. Let's get them and hold them. And that means you have to make this experience different from me than I talk, you tell me what to do, I go home and think about it, and we had a nice call. That doesn't work for me. So,
and I think, like you said, you have to get them and hold them, because
Yep.
there's not enough good clients out there. There's plenty of volume, but I think a lot of the industry is sick of the low-paying, high-volume operation. It's
Right.
going more for the value and less clients and more of that Nordstrom-type service. So what do you think, or what would be the second out of the four?
Number 2 coming up.
Okay.
Number 2. Number 2 on Rob Jolles' hit list. First, number 1 is that confusing product and process, right? We're going to learn more process behaviors than obsess on just product. But number 2 is confusing motivation with process, meaning, so we go ahead and we sign up, and we sit in the Marriott with our mask on or off or wherever we are right now, and we listen to somebody who's going to talk to all these different businesses about selling or whatever they're going to call it. There's a lot of motivation that goes along. I'm hired frequently by speakers bureaus, and I actually get slightly annoyed when I'm called and somebody says, yeah, we've got this client, they're looking for a motivational speaker. I think of Chris Farley when I think of a motivational speaker. I think of living in a van down by the river. Obviously, you want somebody that's going to motivate and inspire and, dare I say, mildly entertain the crew. I got that. But that's the easy part. Don't confuse motivation with process, meaning, again, please be entertaining. That would be nice. But we want repeatable, predictable processes in place that we can measure, because if you can measure it, you can fix it. And we can't just make this some sort of kumbaya meeting. It's got to have process involved. And again, I work with a lot of groups that have been sales trained, and they were highly motivated and inspired, but they woke up 2 days later and they pretty much did the same thing they did before, because there was no process to follow. It was just feel better about accounting. Yeah. I want you to feel better about accounting, but I also want you to have a process in place to do some of the things that the two of us are talking about right now. Real sales pieces, objection handling, opening tactics, deciphering and working with different personalities. I could give you 15 things that should be in there. I want a process so that we can implement what we're about to learn. And if it's motivational, it isn't going to happen.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important piece when you're looking for a sales trainer, sales coach, is that, are you going to walk away with repeatable, predictable steps for you to follow, a process in place? And I think, if you're here listening, you're a process-oriented person. You like systems, step-by-step processes that you can implement, that you get to create all by yourself, instead of be just given some sort of script just to read. It's that you're learning the process and what to do and what to say and how and maybe even why. Because motivation and inspiration, I think you can find that kind of stuff probably on YouTube or maybe in some books. I've been told by a lot of people, Rob, I've gotten a lot of books and I've read a lot of YouTube videos on sales, but nothing ever works. So having the process in place so you can learn how to overcome objections properly, how to understand different personalities, the different stages of the buyers, which we've spoken about in previous episodes.
Right.
And yeah,
I like the fact that you actually, because most people don't talk about that. They don't talk about why. So a lot of times we do. I was guilty of it too for 20 years or so. But I would just blow in and assume, well, everybody wants to hear this. Let's rock and roll. And the reality is, particularly when you learn that sales isn't always pretty, that sometimes, by that I mean sometimes we have to ask questions that won't make the customer feel all that good. We have to ask them about what their plans are if they keep hemorrhaging, cash at this level. That's not going to make somebody smile and laugh. But the why of it, you threw that out. I sat here and really kind of leaned back when you said it. I don't think we do that enough. I don't think we explain to people that when you sell and when you help somebody properly, even when you've asked tougher questions, much like a parent, you've done one of the kindest things you could ever do for another human being. Because believe me, we'll figure it out on our own. At what cost? Will it cost us our family? Will it cost us our business? Will it cost us our self-worth? I don't know. But we have to remember that your client is programmed to fix big problems, not small problems. That's the way we're programmed. And so if you're waiting around and just want to tell me, well, here's what you can do, and let me show you how smart I am, I'm going to stay with, well, that looks interesting, but boy, I haven't been sued yet. I haven't been audited yet. Things, I think I can work through this. No, sometimes one of the most powerful questions to ask somebody, I would think especially for an accountant, is what happens if? Meaning, we don't have to wait for an audit to have a conversation about what would happen if you did have an audit. See, once they do, guys like me will go, well, now I got to go find myself a real accountant. This experiment is over.
Yeah.
But it's what a wonderful, kind thing to do. Rather than fear the word sales, realize that, and we're going to get to, in our list here, it's going to come up soon in terms of style. But imagine if you could stylize it so it fits you, feels like you, and you can help people before problems become unmanageable. That's just an amazing thing for anyone to do, I would think, especially an accountant.
Yeah, and without being pushy or salesy or like a nag, there is a way to help. And I think the big thing, I took away from what you just said is that, people want help to fix big problems, not small ones. If they're small, they're not going to do anything. There's no big cost to make a change until they realize, that, like Rob's example, have 6 penalties and all of these greater problems at hand. And it's a kind thing to do. It's not a manipulative tactic. It's not anything like that, where I hear a lot of people, Rob, share with me. This actually just came up recently with a client of mine. He felt it was to talk about people's fears and challenges was a form of manipulation or persuasion. I said, well, at the end of the day, people will pay and buy to get out of pain, to fix the big problem, like you just said. If it's pretty small, why would they need to do anything? It's just status quo. There's nothing for them to do. But if it's really serious and it's going to impact their taxes and they're going to pay extra, you're doing them a disservice by not bringing these things up and not asking those tough questions like you had shared earlier.
Yep. I sold life insurance. I hope everybody remembers the story I'm about to tell you.
Okay.
I sold life insurance, and I in 2 months and 2 days, I only got 2 phone calls about somebody looking for life insurance. First one was very exciting. I was able to help the individual. The second one, and I was 21 years old, I actually said to the guy on the phone, okay, I got it now. Just tell me this. What did the doctor tell you today? There was a long pause, and there was some blood pressure issues, and we had to have a conversation about that. Mm-hmm. It reinforces the point we're talking about, that sometimes you're going to have to go in there and help people make this decision. When I wrote the book, How to Change Minds, the publisher only took one story out of it, and it was two sentences into the book. And I was telling a story of you're sitting on a bar stool next to an individual, a friend of yours, who's had too much to drink, as usual. You say, hey, but why don't you give me those car keys? And the friend says, no, I got it. And you say, look, why don't you? And there's a conversation, and you don't get those car keys. And the friend says he's got it, only tonight he doesn't have it. Tonight he never makes it home. Now he makes it to the hospital, barely. The two individuals that he kills on the road, they'll never make it home. Their families will be changed forever and have to live with the horror of that night for the rest of their lives. And the individual who commits that heinous act, they too will have to live with this horror. And there'll be a lawsuit, and they'll probably spend some time in jail. They will lose their business. They will most likely lose their family. That family will be devastated as well. But my question is, what about you? You had an opportunity to get those car keys and you couldn't do it. You have to live with that. Now, as brutal as that story is, and if you'd like, I'll change it to aging parents who don't want to sell a house or give up a car. I can keep changing it. I got plenty. My point is, when I say it's one of the kindest things you can do, I mean it. I mean it when I say we have got to ask questions, and sometimes it's a what happens if that blood pressure does rise. Since you've just told me your parents both have high blood pressure, as do your siblings. We have to go deeper with our questions. You can call this selling. You can call it schmelling. You can call whatever you'd like. But we have to stop fixing these issues and let people talk. And that you're not going to get so well out of a book where you sort of put together your own little program. You need a pro to walk you through it and help you implement it. Yeah. But anyway, I'm spiraling off. But
no. It's really important. Because if you find a sales training program or a coach, and that's not the approach of learning how to ask those tough questions and knowing that that is a kind way and a good way to learn how to have more clients engage in your services so ultimately you can help them, then that's a failure point for you. That's maybe why a training program doesn't really work and what to look out for. So I think it's a really important thing that we brought up because you and I are totally in alignment with that. Mm-hmm. And, there's a lot of places that might teach you how to sell just on features and benefits. And, that's focusing just on a surface level. And, I think we get that on Amazon.com. But I think here selling a service-based, customized offer and business to your clients that ultimately they need you because they'll be in a bookkeeping cleanup project job if they go with the cheapest bookkeeper who's overwhelmed and stressed out working at 1-2 a.m. because they're just trying to take on as many clients for the cheapest price. They're not at full capacity in their brain. They're doing horrible work. Or how many times have you seen a tax return? For those CPAs and EAs and accounting and tax professionals listening, how many times have you seen messed up tax returns with errors in them? That is an opportunity to ask those tough questions to the client that was trying to get a shortcut, because the shortcut also has these alternatives. And so what's the third thing someone should look out for in a sales training program for, an accounting or tax firm owner specifically?
Good. And I'll try and calm down over here. I'm getting very excited.
I know.
All right. Number 3, reinforcing the wrong behaviors. I think that often is what kills a good training program because when you do put process behaviors in place, sometimes it's sort of like learning a new golf swing. You don't necessarily hit it quite as far immediately. You don't quite get it into the fairway. And yet, if you keep working on that swing, obviously your plane of improvement improves dramatically. So I think what happens is typically we are incenting people because of their numbers moving up. To me, that's the distance you're hitting the golf ball. I would rather reinforce and reward process behaviors. If you're going to create a change in the way that you work with your clients, in the way that you sell and problem solve and consult with your clients, we have to understand that it's going to be a little bit bumpy until people develop muscle memory. If you lay off the numbers initially and reward the process behaviors, meaning you're like that golf swing, if you don't mind, but sort of I'm just measuring the swing. I know if we can get this swing down, you'll start connecting with this and you'll take off. It unfortunately, a lot of times we're wrestling with management. Sales trainers like me will come in. We'll teach the sales team, but we're wrestling with the managers who are just kind of obsessing on the numbers, and they want to make sure that their numbers are great. We'll get great numbers. Sometimes we have to take
you have
just
a
little
downward
step back
swing.
to go
You'll
forward.
just have a little bit of a dip before you'll have the hockey stick effect.
Exactly.
Which always happens because it's something new. And that, the team was willing to break past the fear of change, like we spoke about earlier. And seeing that, the new behavior might take a little bit longer to learn versus, it's funny, Rob. Like, I've been going to physical therapy, my neck and my low back. And it's just like, well, I've been walking a little funky for, quite a long time of my lifetime. You have to learn a new way to walk so, the bones don't rub against each other the wrong way. And all of that just takes time. It's like little maneuvers, just like you said in the golf swing, that after repetition and enforcing the correct behavior makes the change in the shift.
Right. We talk of training. There's some organizations that I work with who don't even like the word training. Yeah. They will refer to it as just changing, basically trying to change the culture of the organization. We do that frequently with training programs. I think those two terms actually go hand in hand. So if maybe everyone who's listening stops thinking about, well, we'll put a training program in here, that will fix everything. And what we're really trying to do is culturally shift the organization to develop and adapt to these tactics that will help them. And to do that, unless we give people something so basic and simple that they've already done it 100 times, how could we not expect there'll be a slight dip back before we go forward? So like you just said, learning a different way to walk, it probably feels so bizarre and peculiar and ridiculous. And yet, if you can discipline yourself to stay to it, now it will become easier and easier. And there comes that plane of improvement. Now other things will follow and you become a healthier person. We have to look at our training that way too. We have to be patient. That's why companies, and I'm going to pat Xerox on the back for this one.
Okay.
Xerox was just a master at implementation. And I mean quality. When that quality movement came and went, it never left Xerox. We were given various incentives on process, not necessarily production. Can you document what you did and prove you followed the problem-solving process or quality improvement process? It wasn't how big a hit we had. It was how tied we were to the process. And that's where our incentive lay. And in fact, it inspired people to hang in there and adopt these processes. So that one was a big one for us.
Yeah, no, it is a big one. And I think, it's enforcing the right behaviors versus, reinforcing the wrong ones and reinforcing those new ones, even though it might just take a little dip before we go up. So, all right, Rob, let's get to the fourth thing to look out for and be privy to when looking for a sales coaching program, sales trainer in your firm. When you've said, you know what, I want to really increase my revenue and decrease my client load and figure out how not to have these clients try to negotiate price with me. All of these are sales related challenges in your firm that might require some more training on an area that you just haven't been trained on before.
Right. Problem number 4. Waiting for the right time. Everybody it's almost like for some people, it's like waiting to get pregnant. Well, waiting for the right time. Yeah. Okay, good luck with that. Funny, when sales are down and the economy's a little unsettled and customers are nervous, like right now for a lot of businesses, okay? Yep. The instinct is, well, we're not going to learn sales training now because our numbers are down. We're struggling a little bit. Do you understand that it's the logic and instinct are not lining up here? In fact, we should be the busiest people on the planet Earth right now, we sales trainers. And yet, I've been through this many a times before. I also don't turn down business on the flip side, meaning when the economy is strong and business is good, and people are taking numbers out in the lobby, Now everybody wants to get sales trained. and believe me, I'll be happy to come out and sales train you. It's fine. I got it. But I'm always sort of have my head in my hand going, it is so weird the way this industry works. It's, when we started learning about stocks, we learned that it was probably a good idea to try and buy the stock when it was low and sell the stock when it was high. That's that a seventh grader knows. And yet, how often do people really do that? Not as often as we think. As a matter of fact, it's the exception to the rule. It's the same with sales training or just training. When the companies are struggling, that's when we should be budgeting for sales training. It's the reverse. And I wish companies, I promise, I'll stop taking checks when your company has more business than it knows what to do with. If companies will realize that when you're struggling, that is the right time. Matter of fact, I'm not so sure there is a wrong time, but that makes me sound too much like a homer. So I'll tell you, I'll settle on if you ask me, pick one. I'll take you while you're struggling and help you get out of this mess rather than while you're doing fantastic and help you do fantasticer.
And I agree too, because I've worked with hundreds of firm owners. The ones that are struggling in a bind do the work, even though it's harder, even though you have less time on your hands. Like, for example, tax season. I always have a group of people every tax season go through my training program. Those individuals exceed so fast and so much quicker and get so much more practice in because it's the worst time for them to do it. Even though it's the necessary time, but they're the busiest, they're the overworked, they're probably their most tired, they're working the most hours, but they have the most experience in their fingertips to communicate with clients, to connect, to learn how to ask those tough questions and get a lot of reps in and repetitions. One of my other favorite, Rob, books, is Never Split the Difference with Chris Voss, and he always talks about getting your reps in. So I have to always say that and credit him for that because it's so true. And, I've gotten my reps in on having to learn empathy and really understanding empathy. And I think for each person, it's how do you go, you know what? Right now, I'm in the dumps. It is bad. I am overworked. I am underpaid. I am undervalued by my clients. I feel underappreciated. I work so hard for so little, and I just don't understand why my clients are trying to wheel and deal with me. If that's you, this is a great time to learn sales and hire a trainer and go look for someone to support you because that's where you're going to see the massive results. Even though it'll be, Rob, like your golf analogy, you might take a little bit of a backswing in the first few weeks of working with somebody, but you're going to have a hockey stick effect after that, and your swing will be on point and perfect because you'll have a process that you can follow with predictable steps and a system to follow that you create as long as you find the right trainer.
Well, that's true. That's a big part of it. We got to find the right accountant too. There's ones that do it right, ones that don't, but make sure that whoever you look at, that they have process behaviors. And I know from talking to you offline that you're very well versed in process behaviors. And that's the kind of trainer that you're looking for. Somebody who's not going to just pump you up and get you excited and tell you, you got to not, if you can believe and conceive, you can achieve. And, that's wonderful. But I need process behaviors. And, your host here is quite adept at it.
Yes. Yep. Well, Rob, thank you so much for sharing, as always, your knowledge and your genius and having these conversations around sales and what it means, especially for the firm owners, here at the Abundant Accountant Podcast. Is there anything else that we didn't talk about that you're just like, I have to say it, on why sometimes training programs fail or the accountant or firm owner and tax firm owner thinks that it's failing them? Or something we just didn't talk about today that you want to share? Yeah,
thanks. And we tried to. This was a tough one for both of us because, it's not the sexiest conversation to talk about why sales training fails, but it's a very important conversation that we had. While we were talking, I have to say I came up with one more.
Okay.
Just a fast one, 60 seconds or less, real quick. But and it's going to be kind of a weird one, and that is folks, if you're listening to this and you have a sales training program and it's really working for you and it's measurable and it's been processed and it's a process oriented, then I'm saying don't look for another sales trainer. You don't need a sales trainer. I think where companies go wrong is they go so full bore into this thing that it's like reading. Let's go back to golf. It's like getting a golf pro and taking lessons for August, and then finding a different golf pro for September, and a different golf pro for October and November and December. And after 12 months, what could you possibly look like if you keep adding to that pile? And I still bump into people say, oh, I have my team read a different book or listen to a different podcast or clip or sales. Every month we run a different one. Well, shame on you. You don't need that. What you need to do is if you have something that's working, then tirelessly, continually reinforce it. Find different ways. Get on that vendor and say, we've been at this 2 years. Show me something that helps us learn it even at a deeper level. But stay where you are. Don't keep going for the flavor of the month. That I had to get off my chest. Now I'm done.
This is not a Baskin Robbins or I don't know, Rob, if you guys have Salt and Straw.
No, but I know Baskin Robbins really well.
Well, I'm in love with Salt and Straw, and every month they have like themes of the month, flavors of the month, and I'm always so mad when they change. I don't frequent it as often. My boyfriend and I used to go every single week. Now I pretty much go every couple months. But yeah, you don't want it to be like a rotating. You need to stick to one thing and give it time. It's like the professional, like you said, a golf swing. You're going to stick with one golf coach. You can't just keep changing. You're never going to learn it and learn the process and embrace it and feel it. And I think it's really crucial to think about that on maybe why things haven't worked out for you, if that's the case for you.
Good.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking out the time to be here. And if someone does want to read some of your books, where can they get them, Rob?
All you got to do is go to Amazon. I mean, you can go to any online store, or if I'm lucky, you'll find one. It's at a Barnes & Noble, if you can find a Barnes & Noble. But just JOLLES. If you look that up and you go to Amazon, you'll see an author's page and all that. And easy to find me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking out the time. It's always an honor to be here with you. Definitely looking forward to another conversation soon with you.
All right. I'll make it a good one.
What an amazing episode with Rob. He's just such a genius, and I love how we're so aligned in everything that we talk about on all of our podcasts, everything from the decision cycles to this episode to another one, which I can't even remember the topic right now. But know that, if you're struggling with not getting paid your value, having clients pay you late, having accounts receivable, not being able to have enough cash flow to pay premiums to your staff, not have the cash flow or ability to hire the right staff or outsource to the right firms. It's a challenge, and it's a sales challenge that you have. But know that, I'll give you a personal example. I'm in the process of buying my friend's house, and, we negotiated on a price. Everything was hunky-dory. We got an inspection on the house, and there's some foundational issues. There's some major plumbing issues. And those issues are similar to like in your business when you don't have the sales coming in. You aren't getting clients to pay you the premium fees that you truly know you want and that you deserve. Or if you have a client who's trying to negotiate and haggle the price with you or ask you for a discount because they've been with you for 20 years. All of that are kind of like the foundational issues that I'm seeing in this home, or the plumbing issues, and that there's no better time than now to fix it. If I wait, I'm going to get this house, but if I wait and an earthquake happens in the next few weeks, the whole house could kind of just crumble down. You just never know. And I think in your firm and in your business, you just never know. There's never a good time except right now. So if you know that you do have some challenges and that you do need support, reach out to me. Find a sales trainer, find a sales coach that suits you, and just keep aware of what we talked about today and some of those pitfalls. Like, companies or trainers that might let you reinforce the poor behaviors. Or how do you, get clients not off your hit list, I guess you could say? How do you create a structure in your firm with repeatable, predictable processes in place? These are all really important things that you're not just selling features and benefits, and learning how to listen and connect with people in a way that has you learn not only your product side, which is your technical knowledge, but the process. How do you communicate your value in a way? How do you get them to trust you? How do you connect and bond with a client that they've never experienced this kind of service in the past? So that's what I invite you to do. Again, if you would like to really pull back the curtains and see why we feel like we're terrified to lose our current clients that have been with us 20 years, or really be able to, get to the right type of clients and pull back those curtains, then I invite you to go to theabundantcall.com to book your call, and we look forward to speaking to you.